Hi guys, it's Amber from Amber Reads Books, and I'm here today to bring you my weekly reads video. This is the video where I tell you what I read last week, what I'm currently reading, and what I hope to read for the coming week. Last week was a pretty good week. I mean, there's really nothing out of the norm. Went to work, the kids had a few things after school that they had to do, so we did that, but it wasn't overly busy. It was actually kind of nice. And then this weekend is a long weekend for us, so I'm actually off today. Today's Monday. We have off today for Martin Luther King's Day. We have off tomorrow for like a professional development day for the teachers. So I had a 4-day weekend, so I think that is pretty good. I still didn't get as much reading done as I probably should have because I've been completely consumed by Gilmore Girls. I forewarned you last week in my video that a lot of reading might not have gotten done, but because of the long weekend, I was able to at least get 3 books finished. Anyway, the rest of the week was fine, nothing big, nothing major. The only really major thing that happened this week was Brooke lost a front tooth, and she was so ecstatic and over the moon, and she looks so adorable now with her tooth missing. I will insert a picture of that here. So as you can see, she looks absolutely adorable. Her other front tooth is actually wiggly, so she might be completely, toothless in the front very soon, which I cannot wait to get a picture of that as well and share it with you guys because it's just so funny to see your child who you've seen for the last few years with all of their teeth, all of a sudden missing one. I don't know, I laughed so hard, but at the same time, like my heart was breaking because I'm like, oh my God, she's growing up so fast. But anyway, let's get into the books that I read. As always, I'm going to go from my least ranked book to my highest ranked book, starting with The Couple Next Door by Sherry LaPena. I gave this 2.5 stars. It is a thriller about this couple who decide to go to a dinner party next door with their neighbors. They were kind of informed that it was an adult-only party, so they end up leaving their baby at home. They go and check on her every half hour and have a baby monitor, but when they get home for the night, they realize that the baby's been taken. That's the basic premise of the story. I don't want to go any more into the plot than that because it'll give away some of the twists that are in the book. However, I didn't like the writing that much, and I felt like the pacing of the book was a bit off. I felt like sometimes it was really slow and kind of dragging and going over things that you've already kind of been introduced to and knew about, and they were kind of like beating that to death. Or it went really fast and all of a sudden the plot twists were coming really fast, and then you were like, oh wow, the book's done. So I don't know, it was okay. Things in here that were twists I guessed way ahead of time. I pretty much knew from the first couple of chapters how the book was going to end up, so I was just not thrilled by it. And it being a thriller, I think I should be a little thrilled. But anyway, it wasn't horrible by any means. I mean, it was readable, and I did finish the whole thing. I didn't DNF it. It was a very quick read. It was something that I could just mindlessly kind of go through because I already knew what was going to happen. But for other people, it might be something, if you're not one who normally reads thrillers or watches a lot of things like that on TV, you might be kind of caught off guard by some of the things that were shown as twists in here. So I don't know. I don't want to not recommend it, but people that are more seasoned thriller readers probably won't enjoy it. So I'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether you want to read it or not, but for me, I just didn't enjoy it that much. The first line in this book was, Anne can feel the acid churning in her stomach and creeping up her throat. Her head is swimming. The next book that I finished this week was Leaving Time by Jodi Picoult. I went into this book knowing I probably was not going to rate it 4 or 5 stars, so my expectations were not that high going in, but yet I still feel like it did not meet the expectations that I had for it, only because one of my friends said it was her favorite book that this author has ever written. So I was like, oh, it must be really good because her and I have read many of her books and have enjoyed them, and we normally are on the same par as far as the story goes. So I went into it having a little bit of an expectation that maybe it'll be closer to like the 3.75 scale for me. It wasn't. It was only 3 stars. This is the story of a 13-year-old girl who teams up with a psychic and private investigator to find out what happened to her mother who disappeared when she was 3 years old. The mother and father in the story own an elephant sanctuary. They have both the mother is like a doctor and has studied elephants and is studying the grieving process of elephants, and the father has run the sanctuary for quite some time. They met in Africa, and then she decided to move back to the States with him to run the sanctuary. Some of the passages in here, mostly about the ones about the elephants and the way they grieve and what they do and all those sorts of stories, were really beautiful, and I was very much invested in them. When it turned to the story of the 13-year-old looking for her mother, I just found a lot of that unbelievable. And then the twist, which I won't give away at the end, kind of left me like, really? Really? So while there were parts of this book that I absolutely loved and enjoyed, and just the author's writing was so wonderful in those parts, I just couldn't get past the other parts of the book where she was teaming up with the psychic and private investigator and going through and trying to solve this mystery. I mean, I did want to know what happened to the mother, so I was invested as far as that went, and I finished the whole book because I really wanted to know how it was gonna go down. But when I got to the end, I was just like, all right. So anyone wanting to read this, I will say, if you are into elephants and learning about them, which I am, elephants are my husband's favorite animal, and I find them absolutely fascinating. There are those parts in there that would be really fantastic to read. But if you're going into this more for the mystery side, I think you might be disappointed. So just know that going in. I don't know. I really wanted to love it, but I didn't. The first line in this book is, "When I was 9, before I grew up and became a scientist, I thought I knew everything, or at least I wanted to know everything, and in my mind there was no difference between the two." The final book that I read this week was Sea Glass by Anita Shreve. I rated this 3.5 stars. I will say Anita Shreve is one of my favorite writers, even though I have only read a handful of books by her. I have not read too many, but Eden Close and Fortune's Rock are two of my favorite books, and ones that I just read last year, and that to this day I remember clearly and really, really enjoyed it. I was happy to find out that the house that this newlywed couple moves into is the house that was featured in Fortune's Rock. She also, I think, featured it in The Pilot's Wife. So it's kind of like a house that has many stories that she likes to keep going back to. So anyway, this newlywed couple buy this house on the New Hampshire coast, and it's kind of run down and they don't have a lot of money, so they are working towards fixing it up, and it's just kind of their relationship. But it also features many other characters which I was not aware of going into it, and I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by that, because I like jumping from character to character while I'm reading, as long as it's clearly labeled at the top of each chapter, which it was, and as long as the voices are unique to the character and they don't kind of all meld together, which they didn't. So I did really enjoy that. I did feel like it was going to be a book that kind of went in one direction, but it went in another, and I wasn't upset by the direction it went in. I just was not expecting it. So I don't know, it kind of threw me off a little bit. I didn't know that that's what the story was going to be about, because the synopsis was a little misleading as far as that went. Again, I really enjoy her writing. Her writing is just something that I can fall into. I love the way that she dives into what the characters are thinking and feeling. That really drives me as a reader. I just love getting into the psyche of these characters, and when a book is more plot driven and less about the characters and what they're feeling, I feel like I don't enjoy it normally as much. So again, she does a really good job with that. I just feel that in her other two books that I loved, she did it a lot better. So while this was a very enjoyable read, it's just not one that I will probably go back and reread in the future. The first line in this book was, "Honor sets the cardboard suitcase on the slab of granite." So those were the three books that I ended up finishing for this week. I feel like even though they weren't like highly rated, I still had a pretty good reading week because they weren't complicated to get through, and I felt like I was reading at a fairly steady pace, even though I did stop and like binge Gilmore Girls quite a bit. So I was still able to accomplish a lot of reading while being able to still watch a lot of TV. I also started a series of unfortunate events on Netflix this weekend as well, so that kind of has sucked up some of my time. Anyway, let's get on to the book that I am currently reading, and that is Chasing Justice by Carrie Max Cook. This is my story of freeing myself after 2 decades on death row for a crime I didn't commit. This is a nonfiction account, and I'm really excited to get into this. I've read the first 2 chapters, and they have kept my interest so far, so I'm definitely looking forward to telling you guys what I think about this next week. So now let's get into the books that I hope to read for this week. I have been participating every month in hashtag on the BookTube shelves read along that they do. That is hosted by Elisa, Alanna, Christine, and Jen, and I think someone else joined in this month. So I will find all that information out. I'll leave it down below as I usually do. Anyway, the book that they picked for this month was Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. It is a historical fiction read. I'm really looking forward to reading it. However, I don't have the physical copy here with me right now because I actually had to put a hold on it at my library, and it came in, but the library is not open today because it's a holiday. So I'm going to pick it up tomorrow, so then I will have it for next week's wrap up. I'll be able to show it to you guys. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. The next book that I hope to read is The BFG by Roald Dahl. I want to rent the BFG movie, but it's been so long since I've read the book that I want to reread this and just give myself a refresher, so when I go into the movie, I can, spot the differences and see how well they did actually making the movie and everything. So this is on my must-read list for this week. So I'm going to read Lilac Girls, The BFG, and Chasing Justice. So those are 3 books that I'm already reading. I've been averaging about 3 books a week with work and everything, so I don't want to add too much more to my TBR list. However, I did want to pick at least 1 more because The BFG is going to be a book that I could probably read in 1 sitting. So let me pick 1 more fiction book because I'm already reading my nonfiction for January. And that book is going to be Handle with Care. I don't know what that is, so let me go grab it off the shelf. So I was able to find it, and again, out of all the books that I probably could have picked off my shelves, and I probably could have stuck this back in and just repicked another book, I'm just gonna go with it because that's the whole point of the TBR jar, is to be random. However, it's another Jodi Picoult book, so I don't know. I guess we will see how I like this one. This one's called Handle with Care, and it says, every expectant parent will tell you that they don't want a perfect baby, just a healthy one. Charlotte and Sean O'Keefe would have asked for a healthy baby too if they had been given the choice. Instead, their lives are consumed by sleepless nights, mounting bills, the pitying stares of luckier parents, and maybe worst of all, the what ifs. What if their child had been born healthy? But it's all worth it because Willow is, well, funny as it seems, perfect. She's smart as a whip, on her way to being as pretty as her mother, kind, brave, and for a 5-year-old, an unexpectedly deep source of wisdom. Willow is Willow in sickness and in health. Everything changes, though, after a series of events forces Charlotte and her husband to confront the most serious what-ifs of all. What if Charlotte should have known earlier of Willow's illness? What if things could have been different? What if their beloved Willow had never been born? To do Willow justice, Charlotte must ask herself these questions and 1 more. What constitutes a valuable life? I don't know how I'll feel about this book, but I'm gonna try and go into it with an open mind, and we will see how I feel and what my feelings are, hopefully next week if I can get through all of the other books that I have to read. So those were all the books that I've read, that I'm currently reading, and that I hope to read for the coming week. If you guys have read any of these and have any thoughts on any of them, please share those down in those comments below. I hope you guys have a great week and happy reading.